दोस्तों स्वागत है आपका मेरे यूट्यूब चैनल में। और आज हम एक बुक का लाइव डिस्कशन करने वाले हैं, लाइव वर्कशॉप करने वाले हैं। बुक का नाम है थॉट वाइब्रेशन और द लॉ ऑफ अट्रैक्शन इन द थॉट वर्ल्ड। ओके, चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं। चैप्टर 1, द लॉ ऑफ अट्रैक्शन इन थॉट वर्ल्ड। द यूनिवर्स इज गवर्नड बाय लॉ, वन ग्रेट लॉ। इट्स मैनिफेस्टेशंस आर मल्टीफॉर्म, but viewed from the ultimate, there is but one law. We are familiar with some of its manifestations, but are almost totally ignorant of certain others. Still, we are learning a little more every day. The veil is being gradually lifted. We speak learnedly of the law of gravitation, but ignore that equally wonderful manifestation, the law of attraction in the thought world. We are familiar with that wonderful manifestation of law which draws and holds together the atoms of which matter is composed. We recognize the power of the law that attract bodies to the earth, the whole that holds the circling worlds in their places, but we close our eyes to the mighty law that draws to us the things we desire or fear, that makes our marks our lives. Okay, when we come to see that thought is a force, a manifestation of energy having a magnet like power of attraction, we will begin to understand that the why and wherefore of many things that have therefore seemed dark to us. There is no study that will repay the student for his time and trouble as the study of the workings of this mighty law of the world of thought, the law of attraction. When we think, we send out vibrations of a fine eternal substance which are as real as the vibrations manifesting light, heat, electricity, magnetism. That that these vibrations are not evident to our five senses is no proof that they do not exist. Okay, a powerful magnet will send out vibrations and exert a force sufficient to attract to itself a piece of steel weighing 100 pounds, but we can neither see, taste, smell, hear, or feel the mighty force. These thought vibrations likewise cannot be seen, tasted, smelled, heard, nor felt in the ordinary way. Although it is true there are no record cases of persons peculiarly sensitive to physic impressions who have perceived powerful thought waves, and every many of us can testify that we have distinctly felt the thought vibrations of others, both whilst in the presence of the sender at a distance. Telepathy and its kindred phenomena are not idle dreams. Light and heat are manifested by vibrations of a far lower intensity than those of thought, but the difference is solely in the rate of vibration. The annals of science throw an interesting light upon this question. Professor Elisa Gray, an eminent scientist, says in his little book, The Miracles of Nature. This is important book you can read. There is much food for speculation in the thought that there exist sound waves. There is much food for speculation in the thought that there exist sound waves that no human ear can hear, and color waves of light that no eyes can see. The long dark soundless space between 4,000 and 4,000,000,000 vibrations per second, and the intensity and the intensity vibrations per second and the infinity of range beyond 7,000,000 vibrations per second where light sieges in the universe of motion makes it possible to indulge in a speculation. Williams, in his work entitled Short Chapters in Science, says, okay, there is no gradation between the most rapid undulations or tremblings that produce our sensation of sound, and the slowest of those who give rise to our sensations of gentlest warmth. There is a huge gap between them, wide enough to include another world of motion, all laying our world our world of sound and our world of heat and light. There is no good region whatever for supposing that matter is incapable of such intermediate activity, or that such activity may not give rise to intermediate sensations, provided there are organs for taking up and sensifying their moments. I cite the above authorities merely to give you food for those for thought, not to attempt to demonstrate to you that the fact that thought vibrations exist. The last named fact has been fully established to the satisfaction of numerous investigators of the subject. Just and a little reflection will show you that it coincides with your own experiences. We often hear repeated the well known mental science statement, thought are things and we say these words over without consciously realizing just what is the meaning of the statement. If we fully comprehend the truth of the statement and the natural consequences of the truth back of it, we should understand many things which we have appeared dark to us, and would be able to use the wonderful power thought force just as we use any other manifestation of energy. As I have said, we will think we set into motion vibrations of a very high degree, but just as a real as the vibrations of the light, heat, sound, electricity. And when we understand the laws governing the production and transmission of these vibrations, we will be able to use them in our daily life, just as we do the better known form of energy that we cannot see, hear, weigh, or measure. These vibrations is no proof that they do not exist. Okay, there exist waves of some of these are undoubtedly registered by the ear of some of the insects, and others are caught by delicate significant instruments invented by man. Yet there is a great gap between the sounds registered by the most delicate instrument and the limit which man's mind, reasoning by analogy, knows to be the boundary line between sound waves and some other forms of vibration. And there are light waves which the eye of man does not register, some of which may be detected by more delicate instruments, and many more are so fine that the instrument has not yet been invented which will detect them, although in improvement are being made every year, and the unexplored field gradually lessened. And as new instruments are invented, new vibrations are registered by them, and yet the vibrations were just as real before the invention of the instrument as afterward. Supposing that we had no instruments to register magnetism, one might be justified in denying the existence of that mighty force because it could not be tested, felt, smelt, heard, seen, weighed or measured, and yet the mighty magnet would still send out waves of force sufficient to draw it piece of steel weighing hundreds of pounds. Each form of vibration requires its own form of instrument for registration. As present at present, the human brain seems to be the only instrument capable of registering thought waves, although occultists say that in this century, scientists will invent apparatus sufficiently delicate to catch and register such impressions, and from present indications, it looks as as if the invention named might be expected at any time. The demand exists and undoubtedly will be soon supplied. But to those who have experienced along the lines of practical telepathy, no further proof is required than the results of their own experiments. We are sending out thoughts of greater or less intensity all the time, and we are reaping the results of such thoughts. Not only do our thought waves influence ourselves and others, but they have a drawing power. They attract to us the thought of others. Okay, things, circumstances, people, luck in accord with the character of the thought uppermost in our minds. Thoughts of love will attract to us the love of others, circumstances, and surroundings in accord with the thought. People who are of like thoughts of anger, hate, envy, malice, and jealousy will draw to us the full brood of kindred brood of kindred thoughts emanating from the minds of others, circumstances in which we will be called upon to manifest these, while thoughts and will receive them in turn from others, people who will manifest in harmony, and so on. A strong thought or a thought long continued will make us the center of attraction for the corresponding thought waves of others. Like attracts like in the thought world, as you sow, so shall you reap. Birds of a feather flock together in the thought world. Curses like chickens come home to roost and bring their friends with them. The man or woman who is filled with love see love on all sides and attracts the love of others. The man with hate in his heart gets all the hates he can stand. The man who thinks fight generally runs up against all the fight he wants before he gets through. Okay, and so it goes. Each gets what he calls for over the wireless telegraphy of the mind. The man who rises in the morning feeling gloomy usually manages to have the whole family in the same mood before the breakfast is over. The nagging women generally find enough to gratify her nagging propensity during the day. This matter of thought attraction is a serious one. When you stop to think when you stop to think of it, you will see that a man really make it his own surroundings thought, uh, although he blames others for it. When you stop to think of it, you will see that a man really makes his own surroundings, although he blames others for it. I have known people who understood this law to hold a positive, calm thought and be absolutely unaffected by the inharmony surrounding them. They were like the vessel from which the oil had been poured on the troubled waters. They rested safely and calmly whilst the tempest raged around them. One is not the mercy of the fitful storms of fitful storms of thought. After he has learned the working of the law, we have passed through the age of physical force to one the age of intellectual supremacy, and and are now entering a new and almost unknown field, that of physic power. This field of energy has its established laws as well as have the others, and we should acquaint ourselves with them, or we will be crowded to the wall as are the ignorant on the plains of effort. I will endeavor to make plain to you the great underlying principles of this field of energy which is opening up before us before us, that you may be able to make use of this great power and apply it for legitimate and worthy purposes, just as men are using steam, electricity, and other forms of energy today. Okay, chapter 2, thought waves and their process of production. So, okay, like a stone thrown into the water, thought produces ripples and waves which spread out over the great ocean of thought. There is this difference, however: the waves on the water move only on a level plane in all directions, whereas thought waves move in all directions from a common center, just as do the rays from the sun. Just as we here on earth are surrounded by a great sea of air, so we surrounded by a great sea of mind. Our thought waves move through this vast mental ether. Hmm, extending, however, in all directions, as I have explained, becoming somewhat lessened in intensity according to the distance traversed, because of the friction occasioned by the waves coming in contact with the great body of mind surrounding us on all sides. These thought waves have other qualities differing from the waves on the water. They have the property of reproducing themselves respect. In this respect, they resemble sound waves rather than waves upon the water, just as a note of the violin will cause the thin glass to vibrate and sing, so will a strong thought tend to awaken similar vibration in minds attuned to receive it. Many of the stray thoughts which come to us are but reflections or answering vibrations to some strong thought sent out by another. But unless our minds are attuned to receive it, the thought will not likely affect us. If we are thinking high and great thoughts, our mind acquires a certain keynote corresponding to the character of the thoughts we have been thinking, and this keynote once established, we will be apt to catch the vibrations of other minds keyed to the same thought. On the other hand, let us get into the habit of thinking thoughts of an opposite character, and we will soon be echoing the low order of thought emanating from the minds of the thousands thinking along the same lines. We are largely what we have thought ourselves into being, the balance being represented by the character of the suggestions and thoughts of others which have reached us either directly by verbal suggestions or telepathically by means of such thought waves. Our general mental attitude, however, determines the character of the thought waves received from others as well as the thoughts emanating from ourselves. We are receive only such thoughts are only such thoughts as are in harmony with the general mental attitude held by ourselves. The thoughts not in harmony affecting us very little as they awaken no response in us. The man who believes thoroughly in himself and maintains a positive strong mental attitude of confidence and determination is not likely to be affected by the adverse and negative thoughts of discouragement and failure emanating from the minds of other persons in whom these last qualities predominate. At the same time, these negative thoughts, if they reach one whose mental attitude is pitched on a low key, deepen his negative state and add fuel to the fire which is consuming his strength, or if you prefer this figure, serve to further smoother the fire of his energy and activity. We attract to us the thoughts of others of the same order of thought. The man who thinks success will be apt to the get into tune with the minds of others thinking likewise, and they will help him and he them. The man who allows his mind to dwell constantly upon thoughts of failure bring himself into close touch with the minds of other failure people, and each will tend to pull the other down still more. The man who thinks that all is evil inapt to see much evil and will be brought into contact with others who will seem to prove his theory. And the man who looks for good in everything and everybody will be likely to attract to himself the things and people corresponding to his thought. We generally see that for which we look. You will be able to carry this idea for clearly if you will think of the Marconi wireless instruments which receive the vibrations only from the sending instrument, which has been attuned to the same key, while other telegrams are passing through the air in near vicinity without affecting the instrument. The same law applies to the operations of thought. We receive only that which corresponds to our mental attunement. If we have been discouraged, we may rest assured that we have dropped into a negative key, and have been affected not only by our own thoughts but have also received the added depressing thoughts of similar character which are constantly being sent out from the minds of other unfortunates who have not yet learned the law of attraction in the thought world. And if we occasionally rise to high heights of enthusiasm and energy, how quickly we feel the inflow of the courageous, daring, energetic, positive thoughts being sent out by the live men and women of the world. We recognize this without much trouble when we come in personal contact with the people and feel their vibrations. Okay, depressing or invigorating as the case may be, but the same law operates when we are not in their presence, although less strongly. The mind has many degrees of pitch, ranging from the highest positive note to the lowest negative note, which many note in between, varying in pitch according to their respective distance from the positive or negative stream. When your mind is operating along positive lines, you feel strong by beyond bright, cheerful, happy, confident, and courageous. Okay, and are enabled to do your work well, to carry out your intelligence and progress on your road to success. You send out a strong positive thought which affects others and causes them to cooperate with you or to follow your lead according to their own mental keynote. When you are playing on the extreme negative end of the mental keyboard, you feel depressed, weak, passive, dull, fearful, cowardly, and you will find yourself unable to make progress or to succeed, and your effect upon others is practically nil. You are led by rather than leading others, and are used as a human doormat or football by more positive persons. In some persons the positive element seems to predominate, and in others the negative quality seems to be more in evidence. Okay, there are of course widely varying degrees of positiveness and negativeness, and B may be negative to A while positive to C. When two people first meet, there is generally a silent mental conflict in which their respective minds test their quality of positiveness and fix their relative position toward each other. This process may be unconscious in many cases, but course but is a bit but it occurs nevertheless. But but it but it occurs this process may be unconsciously in many cases, but it occurs nevertheless. The adjustment is often automatic, but occasionally the struggle is so sharp, the opponents being so well matched that the matter forces itself into the consciousness of the two people. Sometimes both parties are so much alike in their de- degrees of degrees of positiveness positiveness that they practically fail to come to terms mentally. They never really are able to get along with each other, and they are either mutually repelled and separate or else stay together amid constant broils and wrongles. We are positive or negative to everyone with whom we have relations. We may be positive to our children, our employees, and dependents, but we are at the same time negative to others to whom we occupy inferior positions or whom we have allowed to assert themselves over us. Of course, something may occur, and we will suddenly become more positive than the man or woman to whom we have heretofore being negative. We frequently see cases of this kind, and as the knowledge of these mental laws becomes more general, we will see many more instances of persons asserting themselves and making use of their newfound power. But remember, you possess the power to raise the keynote of your mind to a positive pitch by an effort of the will. And of course, it is equally true that you may allow yourself to drop into a low negative note by careless or a weak will. There's more people on the negative plane of thought than on the positive plane, and the consequently there is more negative thought vibrations in operations in our mental atmospheres. Okay, but happily for us, this is counterbalanced by the fact that the positive thought is infinitely more powerful than a negative one, and it by force of will we raise ourselves to a higher mental key. We can shut out the depressing thoughts and may take up the vibrations corresponding with our changed mental attitude. Okay, this is one of the secrets of the affirmations and auto suggestions used by several schools of mental science and other new cults. New thought cults. There's no particular merit in atmosphere merit in affirmations of themselves, but they serve a twofold purpose. They tend to establish new mental attitudes with, within us and act act wonderfully in the direction of character building, the science of making ourselves over. They tend to raise the mental keynote so that they may get the benefit of the positive thought waves of others on the same plane of thought. Okay, whether or not we believe in them, we are constantly making affirmations. The man who asserts that he can and will do a thing and earnestly develops in himself the qualities conducive to the well-doing of that thing, and at the same time places his mind in the proper key to receive all the thought waves likely to help him in the doing. Okay, if on the other hand one says and feels that he is going to fail, he will choke and smoother the thoughts coming from his own subconscious mentality, which are intended to help him, and at the same time will place himself in tune with the failure thought of the world. And there's plenty of the later kind of thought around. I can tell to you, do not allow yourself to be affected by the adverse and negative thoughts of those around you. Raise the upper chambers of your mental dwelling and key yourself up to a strong pitch away above the vibrations on the lower planes of thought. Then you will not only be immune immune to their negative vibrations, but will be in touch with the great body of strong positive thought coming from those of your own plane of development. Okay, my aim will be to direct and train you in the proper use of thought and will, that you may have yourself well in hand and may be able to strike the positive key at any moment you may feel it necessary. It is not necessary to strike the extreme note on all occasions. The better plane is to keep yourself in a comfortable key without much strain, and to have the means to at command whereby you can raise the pitch at once when occasions demands. By this knowledge you will not be at the mercy of the old automatic action of the mind, but may have it well under your own control. Development of the will is very much like the development of the muscle, a matter of practice and gradual improvement. At first it is apt to be tiresome, but at, at each trial, one grows stronger until the new strength becomes real and permanent. Many of us have made ourselves positive under sudden calls or emergencies. Okay, emergencies. We are in the habit of bracing up when occasion demands, but by intelligent practice, you will be so much strengthened that your habitual state will be equal to your bracing up stage now, and then will be able to bracing up stage now, and then when you find it necessary to apply the spur, you will be able to reach a stage not dreamed of at present. Do not understand me as advocating in a high tension contest continuously. This is not this is not at all desirable, not only because it is apt to be too much of a strain upon you, but also because you will find it desirable to relieve the tension at times, and become receptive receptive that you may absorb impressions. It is well to be able to relax and assume a certain degree of receptiveness, knowing that you are always able to spring back to the more positive state at will. The habitual strong positive man loses much enjoyment and reception. Positive, you give out expressions. Receptive, you take in impressions. Positive, you are a teacher. Receptive, a pupil. It is not only a good thing to be a good teacher, but it is also very important to be a good listener at times. ओके, तो हम लोग ने 2 चैप्टर देखा और आगे भी कंटिन्यू करेंगे। थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग। हमारे साथ बने रहिए। आपको बहुत सारी इसी तरह की स्ट्रॉन्ग बुक्स के लाइव वर्क सेक्शन में लेते रहेंगे।